All right, guys. So Flash. These are. We're just gonna go over the really basics. We'll go into more stuff next week, just so you can get more of an idea. But this first assignment, I'm basically just kind of unleashing all the different tools on you and say, look, these are what they all do. You figure out how you want to use it. But anyway, so we're gonna go with HTML5 canvas. Okay, and I will just create a new folder out here on my desktop. So I close my millions of windows. Just call it story. Then I will save that out inside of story. And I'll call this, be really creative here, story. And I just squeaked right there. All right. Now, the drawing tools in Flash are nowhere near anything like you would have in Illustrator or Photoshop. Like they're pretty basic, they're pretty bare boned. You just kind of, you have what you have. You're gonna, you can do the majority of the drawing in here if you want. But like I said, if you want to do something in Illustrator, that's fine. But once you get this view, now your timeline and stuff may be in different areas. If you go to, oh man, where is it? It's been a while. Didn't show this yesterday. Yeah, so like workspaces, if you go to window works, I thought there's an easier way though. Yeah, right up here. Okay, so these are the different views. I do classic because I'm old, and this is how Flash used to be in Macromedia. So I'm just used to it. I'm used to the timeline being at the top, so that's what I like. But nowadays, I mean, there's just these different ones, like Animator, right? It has kind of the timeline up here as well. It has all the colors and such. I would die in this view because, like, it's just you don't have any room at all. This is called the stage right here. You wouldn't have any room to do anything. But then, of course, my screen resolution is pretty small right here. So on a bigger screen, it may be fine. Essentials, this is how it usually is now. This is kind of the default view. You got the stage up here. You have the timeline down here. It's whatever you want to do there. But I'm good with classic. Classic or essentials is probably the one I would go with. But again, up to you. Because really what you want is the timeline. You need a good big space for the timeline, big space for this. You want a little space for all your tools. And then the properties. That's where you're going to be messing with the most. You got the tools, stage, timeline, and then the properties. Because when you go to these different properties or when you go to these different tools here, you're going to have different properties over here. And then you need to have quick access to the library as well. So you can get into this is where the assets go. This is where any sounds or images or symbols, we'll talk about symbols later, but this is where all that stuff goes. Okay, just a couple things here. If I click on the stage and I go over here to properties, this tells me how many frames per second it goes. 24 is going to be good for basically everything we do. That's just smooth animation. Anything below 24, you're going to start getting kind of choppy animation. It's not going to look smooth. This is how big the stage is, so you can change the size of it however you want. Okay, and then background color. This one always kind of makes me laugh because I'll have students, when they change background colors, they'll just like grab a rectangle and draw it like that, and they'll go, okay, cool, I just changed the background color to stage. Now that just is showing that you don't really know what you're doing. So to be kind of harsh, okay? So right here, stage, right? Click on it. That's how you change the background color of your animation. Anyways, oops, I don't want that to be gray like that. So all the drawing tools are pretty typical to what you would see in Illustrator or Flash. So I'm not really going to go over them that much. You just have, you can draw your shapes and stuff. You have the black arrow tool that just makes selections. You can select different parts of the shape. Okay, so you can start making Tetris pieces if you want. Okay. Also, you can kind of mouse over to the edge and you'll get that little arc. You can start, moving things around like that. This is a vector-based drawing program, so it's not like Photoshop. It's more, all this is being created with math, and it does it that way so it can easily scale. You don't lose quality when you get bigger and smaller and things like that. Okay, you got the white arrow tool. This is more the points, kind of like you would have with the pen tool. Just kind of drag these around. You got the handles, right? So you can kind of start moving things around as needed. And such. Okay, you'll be using this one all the time. Free transform. So that brings us to the first hotkey, Q. It doesn't make any sense. In Photoshop, I think it's Control-T or Command-T. That makes sense. Transform. Q. I don't know where they're getting Q from. Maybe I'm just ignorant. I don't know. But the Q, that's what you're going to use a lot to be able to resize things. So you hit Q, then you select what you want to resize, and then that gives you the way, that you can make things bigger or smaller. Also, you can rotate things as needed. And you can see that it's rotating around this little white circle. Okay, this is like the rotation point. So if I were to move this over here, now it rotates around. Hold up. Wait for it. Went back. Move it right there. Okay, now it rotates around that way. So this is really important, right, for maybe arm type movement, or just whenever you need something to rotate around something different, you just access that little white dot and put it wherever you want. Now you only can get that when you're in the transform tool. So you have to have, these little handles here, because if I were to go over here and select it with just the black arrow tool, it disappears. Lasso tool, just what you would expect. You just click and drag, and you can select whatever you need to select. Pen tool, yep, just like in Illustrator, you can make your trace things, do whatever you want to do with it. Text tool, same thing. Just in Flash, there's two types of text. You got static and dynamic. Static is just that the text will never change. But if you need and we'll do this when we do the game, but if you need the text to change like via code or something like that, you're going to use dynamic. But for now, static should be fine for anything you need to do. Okay, rectangle, polystar, oval. Okay, got your brushes. The bone tool we'll talk about next week. But this is basically how you would create an armature or rig a character. It's kind of cool, actually. You can draw out a character and give them like a skeletal structure to where you can get them to have realistic movement. It's pretty awesome, actually. Paint bucket, that's been around since Paint, dude. Microsoft Paint. So let's see. Eyedropper, pick whatever color you want. Okay, the width tool, if you've used Illustrator, pretty similar, right? You just need to find a stroke or a line here, and you can start messing with the width. Pretty powerful tool, actually. You can start getting some pretty cool shapes and stuff by messing with widths and things like that. Camera tool we'll get into probably next week as well, but it's just a way you can zoom in, zoom out, do all that kind of stuff. Okay, and then pan tool, or you can do it by the space bar. It's just how you pan around. That's really it. Yeah, it's all I really need to show you there. So typical animations, I'll show you this, then we'll be done here. But there's 3 types of tweens you can do in Flash. Right, so the first one is a shape tween. This I kind of call the, I don't know, whatever you want to call it here. Morphs. It's not used a whole lot, but it's good to know that it's there. Okay, I gotta turn on my keyboard there. Okay, so another hotkey that's really good to know is F6. You will use that one all the time. This is how you create a keyframe. Keyframe is how it ends, and then Flash will put everything in between, hence the word tweens. So to do a shape tween, it just takes a vector image and it just morphs it into another one. So let's say I wanted this to take 1 second. Right, so right here in the timeline, it shows me right here that this is 1 second because these are all frames and it's 24 frames per second. So I click out there on the 24th frame, hit F6. If F6 doesn't work on your keyboard, function F6 will. That's mainly for Mac people. The function key is the FN key. On the keyboards in here, it's on the right-hand side. It's kind of over by the return key. On every other keyboard that actually matters, it's in the lower left-hand corner. Okay. Again, Mac just doing things their own way. All right, so it's lower left-hand corner, usually right next to the control key, but on the keyboards in here, yeah, it's right by the enter key on the right-hand side. And that's if the F6 key doesn't work. If it doesn't, if you hold down the FN key and then hit F6, it should work. So the way this works, right? You just click on the keyframe and you just draw something. Drew this amazing circle, right? And then that's how I want it to start. That's the other thing you have to pay really close attention to in Flash is what keyframe are you on? You always need to click in the location you want to draw on first. That's one thing that students mess up all the time is they're on this keyframe over here and they're putting stuff on it when they think they're over here at the beginning. So you need to get in the habit of always going, okay, where do I want this? All right, I want it at the beginning. So you come over here, you click at the beginning of the keyframe, then you do your thing. Okay, yeah.
Your circle looks dark inside of it,
So it's all about the fill and stroke.
No, it's up there, in the keyframe, under number 1.
All right, here. Okay, yeah, the dark circle there means that it's a full keyframe. It has something on it. This means it's empty.
Okay.
So if I click on that, that means there's nothing there. Yeah, this little dark circle means, okay, you've put something in that keyframe.
And can I just, delete frames, or do I have to, go back, say, because when I was trying to mess with the function F6, I created a couple.
Okay, yeah, so to get rid of a keyframe, yeah, you got to right-click it and do clear keyframe. There's no hotkey that I'm aware of. And you can't just hit delete because keyframes are special. So you got to do that clear keyframe. All right, so first one right there, got a circle. Want it to go into a square because I'm just crazy, guys. So we draw the square. Okay, so I defined right here, starts as the circle, ends as the square. Now all you got to do is right click and do create shape tween. And then it just does everything for you. Okay, again, you can see how it morphs. So it just slowly kind of morphs into the square.
But you put the square after the second keyframe, right?
I put the square right there on the second keyframe. On the second keyframe.
On where the square was before? The empty square?
Yep, where the empty keyframe was. Yep, right there.
Okay.
Yep. So circle begins with circle, ends with the square. You right click and add the tween, and then it just does the animation for you. You can press enter on your keyboard, and that will preview it inside the timeline, inside of Flash.
Okay, where'd you enter the tween?
I just right clicked and did create shape tween.
Okay. Because when I go out of this, I can't. It still keeps the circle there.
Yeah, so you got to be on the actual layer and right click.
So delete that square first.
No, you got to have a keyframe. Like that little square, that's just at the end of it. You got to have an actual keyframe at the end. So click at the end. Yeah, the function F6. Yeah, and then now that you have the two, you can right click in the middle and create shape tween. It's just the second one now. And then it should. Oh, it's because your first keyframe and last keyframe are exactly the same, so it doesn't have anything to morph into.
because I put a square bed.
Yeah, because there you have the circle and a square, and so the square just morphs into the. So if you were to like click on, if you add a keyframe there, and then just hit delete, and that will delete everything outside of it. Yeah, now if just you click on that keyframe, and then draw like the square. Yeah.
But I should have the circle first.
Yep. Yep. So click there, draw the square. So you have
the circles.
You have the circle there. Click on the next one.
Oh, okay.
And then draw the square on that one, and then it'll morph to a square.
Awesome.
And you add that shape. So it's just defining how it begins and how it ends, and then you tell.
Yeah.
It'll still work.
You could, yep.
Okay.
Yep. Now, like these shapes, could I put other vector images here instead? Could it be still considered a shape?
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, let me show you something else. So this gets a little weird, but let's say I don't know. I just want to. Let's grab Popeye here. We all love Popeye. It's been a. So maybe I want Popeye for some reason to morph into the square. Why? I don't know. I just do. So I'm going to hit Q here, shrink him down.
Now that Popeye, is that a PNG or?
Yeah, just an image I threw off the internet. I grabbed off the internet. Now you can see that like it died. When you get the dots here, that means that the tween's broken. It's not going to work. I press enter. It can't morph Popeye into the square because Popeye is not considered, I don't know the official term, but it's like a broken apart vector image. So to break him apart and make him kind of pixelized so you can do this, you got to hit Control B or Command B, and that breaks it apart. Or you can go to Modify, Break Apart, and that will kind of break him down to where he's pixelized. So you can see that I hit Control B, and now he's kind of, I don't know the official term, but it's like he's pixelized now. So now he's considered a shape. So, I don't know how well this is going to work though.
Or it's Command B, said?
Yeah, Command B or Control B. Now this doesn't work too well, right? You're seeing, but it does kind of morph it into it though. Kinda. But this isn't really a use that you wouldn't really use this. Let me try this here. Not sure if this will work as well, but. So I threw in another image. I'm going to break him apart. Yeah, this isn't really the use for it, but
if they were vector,
yeah, exactly. So these are images that I broke down and kind of pixelized them, so it just doesn't work very well. But if you drew something, yeah, it would just morph it. So I mean, you can have like images morph into other images. So if I come over here and like draw something, smiley face, right? Come over here, frowny face. You start getting some weird effects. But you can also see that this actually kind of did a realistic type movement, really. It just kind of morphed into the frowny face. So if you need strokes, things that you draw to kind of wiggle around and stuff, like it could work. But this is just more morphing. And you'll get a lot of unexpected effects too. So that's why it's not used a whole lot. All right, so is that really gonna be see-through? No.
And you always, again, you always create the new shape tween, or create the shape tween before you put the second shape.
Yeah, you just got to figure out what you want to have happen, and then on the first keyframe you draw it out, and then the second keyframe you put it out to where you want it to be.
No, but when you do the right click for create shape tween, you do that before?
You usually do that last.
Last, okay.
Yeah. You set up how it begins, you set up how it ends, and then you tween it. Yep. Get something that's see-through, hopefully. There we go. All right, so I'm going to call this wheel. I'm going to import it here, import to the library so I can use it. Man, I keep forgetting. There we go. So if I head over here to the library, I can see that it's in there now. I don't know why. Get rid of that. So to do this next one, it's just kind of the same thing. I got a wheel here and say I just want it to rotate across the screen. Well, I know I want it to start here, so I'm going to move it over there. Okay, come over here. I'm going to add a keyframe, so F6, and I want it to end over here. Then I just right-click, and there's two types of motion tweens. There's a classic, and then there's a motion. We'll go over motion here in a minute, but classic tween is just what it is. Classic tween used to be the motion tween, but After Effects and Premiere have different ways that they do tweens as well, and they kind of imported those into Flash, and that's the motion tween now. But to do a classic tween, you have to do what's called converting these to a symbol. You can't tween something that's just an image. It has to be an actual symbol. So luckily, this used to be a pain in the butt, but Flash does it for you now. So when you come over here and you just say, hey, I want this to be here when it starts, and then I come over here and I want it to be there when it ends. When I right click and say create the classic tween, Flash is going to go, okay, it can't be tweened. You got to convert this stuff to a symbol. Do you want me to do that? And so I can just say okay, and Flash will do it for me. They've made it a lot easier. Where before you had to manually, well, sometimes you still do, but before you had to manually convert that to a symbol, come over here, convert that to a symbol, and you do that by hitting F8. F8 converts to symbols, and so you convert both of those to a symbol, then you tween. Where now all you got to do is just position it. I want it to start there, want it to end there, tween it, and then it goes in here and it automatically converts these to symbols for you. So that's nice. I'm going to hide this. So you can hide layers, by the way, or lock them so they can't be messed up. When you got something perfect, you got it exactly how you want it to be, you usually want to lock it just so you don't accidentally mess it up. So yeah, wheel goes across. Okay.
So what would be the difference with that or the motion tween?
Motion tweens don't morph where the shape tweens do. Motion tweens just move things. Where shape tweens, it's trying to take what you began with and what you ended with and morph them into each other. Where motion just goes, nah, I'm just going to move stuff. And it moves symbols.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I mean, okay. So, but for the wheel just moving, you could do either motion or classic.
Yep. Okay. Motion or classic. I'm going to show you how to do motion here in a minute. But this is the classic one, and it's purple. I don't know if it, yeah, it kind of looks purple up there. All right, now this doesn't look really realistic, right? It's just floating, it's moving, and it's actually going a little too quick, I think. So we can fix that. You click just anywhere in between these keyframes and you go to properties and you can do a bunch of different things. First one's rotate. Well, wheels rotate when they move. So I probably want that to rotate. So I say rotate once. That actually looks pretty realistic. It is rotating and it looks like it's just rolling across, which is great. So the one time I told it to rotate once clockwise, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted. But problem is, right, I think it's a little too fast. So I can add frames. This is how you add frames. You can add it to an individual layer or you can add it to the whole thing. If I click just anywhere in between on this layer and hit F5, that's another one you are going to want to like burn in your brain because you'll use that all the time. F5 adds frames. And so it's going to make the animation longer. Okay, the problem is though, if this shape layer was lined up with the wheel layer, now everything's messed up because I just made this one longer, but I didn't do anything to this one. So I could either just do, come in here and hit F5 as well, which, if you got 20 layers, which you easily may, that's going to be a pain in the butt to have to go through every one of those layers and manually add the frames. So you can click up here where this the playhead is. They call this thing the playhead. You can hit F5 and it'll add it to everything. Really, really helpful thing right there. Click on the playhead, hit F5, it adds frames to all of the layers at once. But if you click on an individual layer, it only adds the frames to that layer. To remove frames, it's Shift F5. So if you have to use the function key in that, it gets a little weird. Shift, function, F5, and yeah, kind of annoying, but that's how it is. So maybe I want this to last 2 seconds, so Shift F5 until it gets to the 2-second mark. Okay, now I can hit enter. Even the one rotation still looks pretty good, but it's just rolling a lot slower now. So, I mean, you can rotate things. You have your easing. In this case, I don't think I'd really want my wheel to ease, but I'll show you what it does anyways, just so you can get an idea. Easing is just how you get realistic motion onto things. So right here where it says classic ease, I can click on that and say I want it to ease in, quint, whatever that means, I don't know, double click. Okay, and you can see that it eases into the animation, then it goes faster. So it starts out really slow and then it goes quick. And I don't know, that may or may not be something you want. Try back. I don't even know what the heck back does. Oh, okay, so it goes back and then it goes forward. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Some smoke, some hot flames.
Yeah, exactly.
And then turn to Hot Wheels.
Yeah. Okay, you got elastic, which just makes it look like the wheel's just going crazy. Kind of has, mind of its own. Bounce. Bounce is kind of weird when you're moving horizontally, but if this was to go vertically, you can make it look like it bounces when it hits the ground. So the thing is just you'll want to just play around with these, get an idea of what it can do. So, and the reason I'm showing all you this now, because now you got an idea of the different types of animations that can be done. So now you can get an idea of what kind of story you would want to animate with these types of things. Okay, let me go back to just no ease, or I guess classic ease, which just makes it move without any weird stuff. It just goes across. Let's see. Nah. Might as well continue the narwhal thing here, right? Maybe. I wonder if there's any icons of those. There's got to be. There we go. For some reason, I want him to be riding the wheel. Why? I don't know. Just because. They're narwhals. They do whatever they want. Okay, so file, import stage, library, whatever. No, library is what we want. And then we're going to grab the narwhal here. Okay, and I'm going to create a new layer. That's kind of the main thing you need to get really used to with Flash is everything that you're animating, and yes, it gets very tedious. Everything you animate needs to be on its own layer. I can't animate the wheel and the narwhal on the same layer. They're going to conflict. You're going to have two different types of symbols. You're going to have two symbols on one layer, and that just breaks Flash. It doesn't like that. So I'm going to grab the narwhal here. And I'm just going to kind of do the same thing. But I'm going to do a motion tween this time. So motion tweens are a little different. With classic tweens, you're throwing in keyframes, you're telling it how it starts and how it ends, and then it just animates it. It's really similar to a shape tween. But these motion tweens, same thing, they have to be a symbol. Okay, they have to be a symbol to be able to thing. So it says I'm going to convert it to a symbol. That's fine. I'm going to let it do that. We're good to go. Now the way this works is a little bit different. You can see that it's blue instead of purple. With this, I just said, okay, start here, end here, put in the tween. I was done. This one is a little bit different. You have to drag the playhead to where you want it to kind of put the keyframe, and then you drag whatever you want. Like I'm going to go like this, and you can see that it drew this path. So now it knows because I put the playhead right here. I go, okay, at this moment in the animation, I want the narwhal to be right here. So I clicked and dragged it, and so now it knows to kind of move it. So it knows I wanted it to start there. I clicked and dragged the playhead out there, and then I moved the narwhal. So it's a little bit different of a process. So then I can come over here and be like, okay, the wheel's right there. So at this moment in time, I want the narwhal to be a little bit higher because he's magical and he floats, right? And I want him to be right here with the tire. And then I kind of move it a little bit more. And then I move him down a little bit more, want him to be right there. So instead of hitting keyframes and putting in tweens, you're just kind of moving the timeline to the part of the animation you want it to be, and then you click and drag the thing, and it just kind of animates it for you.
But you didn't right click on the top.
I did not. I did once. I did right at the beginning. I right-clicked and said, add motion tween. And that's it. Then you do the animation afterwards. So you add the tween first, and then you start moving the playhead and moving things around. And yeah. Okay, and so then when zoom out here. So now I'm at the end of the animation, and I want the narwhal to fly off into wherever. Okay, so now I hit enter. That actually kind of looks like he jumps. Whee! Okay. Now the cool thing about these motion tweens is you see the path. Well, you can start messing with the path. So I can start, maybe I want him to jump a little bit higher. So I kind of move it up a little bit. And then I want it to be more of kind of an arc. And I want him to drop a little bit more. So I want the jump to be a little more accented or whatever the heck you want to call it there. Okay, so now he jumps. That's a lot cooler. It looks like he's bouncing on it, right? And then he takes off. So you have a little bit more control after the fact on how exactly it animates, because now it creates this path and you can click and drag and move the path and do whatever, where here it'd be a lot harder because I'd have to come in here, hit F6, move it a little bit. You can get smoother motion with these motion tweens as well because you get these arcs, right? But with the classic tween, you don't really get that. So the trade-off, right, you have more control with the motion tween, but with the classic tween, they're not as compatible. Sometimes these motion tweens don't work very well with the HTML5 canvas. You talked to John with that. John made something pretty cool yesterday and it just was blowing up. And a lot of the times there's just no good explanation on why it's doing it. It's just Flash. I hate that explanation, but that's kind of what it is. You just kind of go, well, that's just how Flash works. Sorry. Let's try it another way, is basically what we need to do. Okay, now I would highly recommend that you add sound to these. Silent animations aren't really that fun. I'll probably show you that next week. For now, what you really want to focus on is just make sure you understand tweening very well and you know exactly how to do it, because you're going to be using tweening for the rest of the quarter. If you can't tween, Flash is pretty useless. Okay, and you can do the same thing here. I think, yeah, rotate. So I can have him do flips and stuff. That's actually pretty cool. Whee! All right, so you got kind of the same options. I think, yeah, you can mess with the degree of how he's flipping and stuff. So a lot of this stuff, you know, you just got to play around with it to get an idea of exactly what's going on and what it does. So again, main hotkeys, right? F6 is keyframes. F5 adds a normal frame. Shift F5 gets rid of them. Control S, right? Obviously saves. Make sure you're doing that all the time. F8 converts to a symbol, but usually Flash will do that for you, so you don't need to worry about that too much. Those are the main ones for now. Control plus, Control minus, Command plus, Command minus, that zooms. Again, you understand the tweens and how they work. Make sure you do all three. Make sure you can get all three to work. If you can get, like I said, if you can get that tween concept down, you're golden. You're doing pretty well here. But again, this stuff isn't going to come to you unless you actually work through it and hammer it out. Oh, I lied. Well, yeah, I guess one last thing. So this is an FLA, right? Story.fla. This is the Flash file. I couldn't put an FLA online. I couldn't put an FLA on YouTube or anything. I can't share this. I mean, I guess I could email it to someone and they could open it up in their copy of Flash. But this is not like the exportable version, right? So what you need to do to export is just Command Enter or Control Enter. Okay, and what that does is if I open this up, okay, I got my two pictures in the FLA. When I hit Control Enter, it exports. Okay, and then it shows it in the browser. So this is what it created for me. So it created an HTML file that I could put on my host, creates the JavaScript file that controls all the animation, and then it creates this image that it uses to have my images placed on the page.
And all you do is hit Command or Control Enter.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yep, and then it
automatically saves it wherever you saved.
Yeah, wherever you put the FLA, it'll export this stuff. So if I were to upload this to my host, I'm uploading the HTML, I'm uploading the JavaScript, and I'm uploading the images folder. And
Does it automatically do brackets?
Well, I mean, it created a JavaScript file, and brackets is on there because that's my default program that I have for JavaScript. So this is what kind of kept flash in the scene is being able to do this, because I could open this up on a mobile device, a tablet, whatever, and this would work. It's no longer dependent on the flash player, and that's huge. Because if I come over here and right click this, it doesn't say about flash player. It has nothing to do with the flash player. Okay, now this is making me kind of sick. I don't like seeing it over and over again. So I keep lying to you guys. This is the last thing I'm going to show you. I promise. Maybe. I don't know. Okay. So I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to call it actions or code or whatever. This is where I'm going to put my code. It's nothing too crazy. So I want it to stop right at the end. You can only put code on a keyframe. So I add a keyframe here at the end.
Okay, does it always have to be on a separate other than?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, because yesterday I kind of added on.
Yeah, I could put it right here if I wanted to.
Okay.
It's just organization's sakes. I like to have a code layer where I put everything. Yep. So to get to it, it's F9. That's another hotkey. F9 brings up the coding window, or you can go window actions. That's what it's called. And it's just this dot stop parentheses semicolon. This refers to the animation. This is JavaScript. In the HTML5 canvas, any code that you do is JavaScript. This is a keyword that refers to the animation. And then stop is just a method that just knows to stop whatever.
Learn other JavaScripts for animation.
Yeah.
And you can minimize that window, right? Or you can put it like under properties or something.
Yeah, I could bring it over here. I think, yeah, that'd actually make a lot of sense to put it right there. Holy crap. Maybe not. It sure wants a lot of room. Nope, not doing that. Uh-oh. Maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. There we go. Nah, I usually just keep it in its own window. Yeah, once you create your story, then we're going to put buttons on it so you can control it and pause it and do all that kind of stuff. But we're really going to hit the code big time when we get into the game, because the game we have to do hit detection. We got to, do points when certain things happen. We have to do a bunch of stuff. I think it's pretty cool.
I'm pumped.
You guys want to? Oh no. Actually have. Let's see. Well, I'm going to stop recording because that's about it. That's all you need to know for that.